Now.
Welcome, everyone. This is your live review event for Unit 3, and you have four of us on camera here. Dr. McClellan, Dr. Wilcox, Professor Warren, and Professor Levesque. And we may get some more coming in as well. So tonight, as always, the idea here is that we're going to go through some of the homework that you're interested in, sort of how to do it, but then the main purpose is questions. We want to know what you're confused about, and then use this sort of interactive chance to really help you and walk through some of the stuff, some of the subtleties. So why don't we jump right in? We're going to just sort of talk through some of the more tricky homework examples. And then we are watching the Piazza Forum for your questions, so don't wait, just jump right in with your questions right away if you have them. We seem to have 40 viewers. Wow.
Cool.
Is that might be a...
I have one.
Oh.
Oh, they left. They left. Oh, no.
Am I making that up?
I don't know. Does it say 40 down there? That's kind of cool.
I think it says 40.
Okay, well, that's neat.
Maybe 40 have viewed it.
40 have viewed the message.
Yeah. Anyway, so would anybody like to start on one of the homeworks? I want to look through. I don't want to be the first one to go because I wanted to look through and find the one that somebody had requested.
The request was for minor 1. Minor skills 1, I think.
Yes.
Minor scale homework 1.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll start patterns homework, which precedes the minor scales, and that way we can build into the minor scales maybe.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, this is definitely something that if you build up the skills one by one, that's the way to go. So.
Okay. All right, I'm sharing my screen. Can you guys see my screen? Can you see the screen?
Probably any second now. Yes, now I can.
Okay, great. Okay, so I received both in the forum and then through email several questions about the scale patterns homework. I felt like we should go over this because not only did I receive questions, this is the building blocks of all of this unit essentially. You need to understand how to identify semitones and whole tones within a basic scale pattern, and we discuss larger intervals. So if you look at the number 1 here, this is a basic scale, and what I mean by a basic scale is that there are no sharps or flats. It's essentially the white keys of the piano. So the best thing to do here is you see there's a B to C on the treble clef, and you need to drag one of these two intervals over here. You're going to look for B and C on the actual keyboard. And if you look right here, there's a C. Now notice, even though these are both white keys, there's no black key in between the two, which actually makes this a semi-spots on the keyboard. Right? B to C is a tone. So I'm going to go back to my homework assignment. I'm going to take ST, and I'm going to drag it down right below there. So C to D, I'm going to go to my generic keyboard. I'm going to look C, D. Now notice there is, so this is in fact the whole tone. I'm going to drag the whole tone over here. And you're going to do this for every one of these. It's always good to check them. Again, E to F here. I'm going to go back to the keyboard. This is another tricky one. E to F, again, 2 white keys, but no black key. Semitone. So I'm going to drag ST there, and then F to G. It's a whole tone. G to A. It's a whole tone. And A to B. I'm skipping over some steps, but you are more, go through the keyboard for every single one of these. And then once you get this done, you're going to enter this into the space below, no spaces. So ST, WT, WT, ST, WT, WT, WT. Does that make sense for you guys so far?
Yeah, that sounds good from here. You're cutting out just a tiny little bit off and on, but I think it's still understandable. Do you want to give an explanation, perhaps, of why are we doing this? Since we're not really making proper major and minor scales, what's the point of this particular assignment? I mean, I know you said that at the beginning, but I think we could bookend it a little.
Yeah, so the point of this is that the issues that many students have with the minor scales in particular, where we have to add accidentals, comes from not understanding semitones and whole tones. When you have to add the accidentals to the scale, you need to be able to look at the keyboard. Particular homework assignment, I think there was just some confusion also, like how to actually enter in the answer. Like a couple students were not clear on that. On the screen might be helpful. Am I still on?
Yeah, we're still on your screen. We have a question came in from Erica, sorry, and she actually asked two, and I think one of them we're going to talk about soon, which is the harmonic and melodic homework. She says she thinks she understands the concepts, but she's a little confused by the directions, and she's, as such, is not getting them correct. So we might want to take a look at that one and see if there's something in particular that's going wrong. And she also wants to know if she can use a piano in the exam. And yes, actually, the reason the proctor track went out a little late from our section in particular is because we had to test and make sure you guys were allowed to use a piano and not have it be flagged. So yes, emphatically, you can use the pop-up piano, or if you want to print out an image of a piano and have it on your desk and use it there, that is also a good way to work through counting your semitones and half and whole tones, and that's what we want you to be doing for this particular test. So maybe we want to move on to one of the other homework assignments. Any
Sure.
takers?
Craig, did you want to do the minor scales?
Sure. I mean, let's do minor one first. Minor scales homework 1 first. We have a request on that one.
And then I'm happy to talk about the harmonic and melodic after that.
Sure. Let me switch over to my screen share. Okay, are we there? Okay, so I think the reason that this homework is giving a few people problems is the difference between la, lay, te, and ti. So I'm just going to pick a few of these as we go down and just do them as examples and point out the issues as we go. Okay, so the first one, A minor, when is the pitches solfege syllable? So in this case, it's do because it's the first step of the scale. I had a student who's having a problem of not counting the tonic note, the starting note, as 1. One thing to remember is that where you start is always 1. In this case, it's not such a big deal because 1 is do, but later on when we do the numbers, it will be more important. Okay, A minor, the pitch is solfege syllable. Here's A, this would be the second step, so in this case it would be re. Now, harmonic function. This is where it gets tricky. So we're in A minor still. This is an F and bass clef. It's the 6th step of the scale. It doesn't make a difference for us with the 6th step whether or not it's raised or not. It's still going to be submedian. It will make a difference if it's the 7th step. The raised 7th step is the leading tone versus the unraised is the subtonic. But the unaltered 6 and the altered 6 are the same. Let me skip around a little more. Okay, so here we have the scale question. This is where the issue of counting comes up. So we have an F sharp, that is the 6th step of the scale. I had a lot of students who were calling this the 5th step of the scale because they would say, okay, we have A, and then B, C, D, E, F sharp, that's 5. They would call that 5 and be mistaken, but remember A in this case counts as 1, so the correct answer would be 6th step. Here's a good one. So in A minor, what is this pitch of solfege syllable? This is where the difficulty comes, because in minor we have two versions of 6 and two versions of 7, and they do get different solfege syllables even though they're both 6 and 7. This would be te because it's not altered in raised. The G sharp would be T. G natural, te, subtonic. If it were G sharp, it would be T leading tone. Another scale degree question, that would be scale degree 1. Here we have an F sharp, that's the 6th scale degree. It's raised by a half step, so instead of lay, which would be F natural, this one will be la. Here's another good example. In A minor, we have the 7th step, but because it's unaltered, we would say subtonic. Again, if this were G sharp, it would be leading tone. Subtonic, G natural, leading tone, G sharp. And just do this last one for some finality. We have the subdominant as its 4th step of the scale, A, B, C, D, subdominant as 4. Okay, so I think most of the difficulties with this came from the issue of counting and not always counting your starting note as 1, and then understanding the difference between la, lay, te, and ti, subtonic versus leading tone. And that's it, I think. Did we get it all, guys?
That sounds great to me, yeah.
Yeah, very well done.
I will check out then.
Okay, so now
So
should we move on to harmonic and melodic, Robin, or did you want to do something different?
No, why don't we jump in on that, and maybe we can, if students have gaps you want to fill in, please jump in on the forum and ask us. But I like to, this is one of my favorite topics because I have a bone to pick with the music theory gods on the question of melodic and harmonic minor. This is just my little diatribe, which I will keep very brief. I don't think my personal opinion is that there are not 3 minor scales, there's only 1 minor scale, which you are doing alterations to in what we know as the 3. Heresy. So and if you look at repertoire, if you look at the music of the famous composers that all of this theory is based on, like Bach and Mozart and Haydn, they don't set out and they don't write a piece in melodic minor or in harmonic minor. They write a piece in the minor mode, and then they will alter the 6th and 7th notes of the scale, given to fit a given situation. So it's really about the local melodic context of the music that determines the choice about whether you're going to raise the 6th degree or the 7th degree or not. So that's my diatribe. I'll leave it at that.
I have to say I completely agree. And every time a student tells me that something is written in A harmonic minor or A melodic minor, honestly, I die a little inside.
Yes, me too. I've died so many times that it's probably taken like 5 days off my life.
5 whole days.
5 full days that I'll never get back. But anyway, I don't know if that's helpful to people out there, but I think it can be helpful that if you just think of it that way, like it's 1 minor scale and you're just doing these little alterations on it, which give it these different forms of harmonic and melodic. So in a way, I like to think that it simplifies it because it's just a matter of and when I say the 1 minor scale, what I mean is the natural minor, and then there are these alterations you can do which give rise to the melodic and harmonic. So if you just think of it this way, there's the minor scale, if you can memorize that, and then you can mess with 2 of the scale degrees, 6 and 7, and that pretty much summarizes the entire thing about those 3 minor scales. So, but on a more practical level, I think the question was more about how to do this assignment. So I'm going to share my screen if I can. Okay, let me know if when it pops up, if you can see it. So,
good.
Okay, thanks. So this is a rather brilliant design idea by Dr. Wilcox, who devised this system that allows you to enter the answers and have the computer read them. And so I'll just briefly demonstrate. All you have to do, this is the first page. Wait a minute, I'm in the wrong one. Sorry. Did you see it switch over to the melodic minor? Is it showing a 6 and 7? And
Yep, you're good.
okay, thanks. So one thing that can be confusing is that you're not entering an entire scale, you're just entering the altered tones. So all of the other tones in the scale are marked red to show that they're just givens. They're not under question in this assignment. They are given to you. So the only thing you have to worry about are scale degrees 6 and 7, which, as I said, is just these little alterations you're doing to the basic minor scale. So what you need to know is, and this you do, there is some merit, I will say, to like memorizing that in the melodic minor you do a certain thing, and that is you raise the 6th and 7th degrees from where they already were. That can also be confusing because, for example, the 6th scale degree might already have a sharp on it in the key signature. Like, let me see if I can find an example. Okay, this is an example. This is A sharp, and the 6th degree of the scale is an F sharp. So you might say, well, it's already raised because it's sharp, but it's not raised because the key signature has a sharp, and the key signature is the default note of the scale. So whatever the default note is, as viewed and as determined by the key signature, then you raise it from that. So I'll go back to a case where the 6th degree is a natural, so you drag a sharp in front of it, and this is the clever design idea, that as you drag it, you see that there's a little S for sharp, that it's been placed next to the 6. And that is now what you enter in the box, 6S. 6S, and it will take upper or lowercase s. And again, you ignore the red notes and just put in the 6S, and then if the 7 has an S, you put 7S. But whatever you see in the box, that's what you put. So break it into 2 steps. First, just focus on the notation, put in the sharps and flats or whatever naturals that you need, and really double check your work, make sure it's absolutely right, and then whatever it is, just as a second step, go and enter those numbers and letters into the box, and that's it. So I hope that helps a bit.
Erica, have we answered your question? If you feel like we've hit what you didn't understand about the homework assignment, please feel free to go on with the homework assignment. But if you feel like you still have questions, please feel free to add them onto the forum. And I think... Oh, okay.
So, Robin, can you maybe do the entire exercise, all 4
Yes,
things, just so they can see?
Yeah, good idea. So this is one of the reasons you should attend these things, because you're about to get the answer to this question, if I can do it right. So melodic minor, quick review. What happens is that you are raising the 6th and the 7th degree, but only on the way up, and then on the way back down, they are back to their default form, which means that you have to unraise them. And because they will have sharps having been raised, in this case, you have to add naturals to undo the sharps. So, so we have the 6th degree is a D. So I've raised it by adding a sharp because it was a D natural in the key signature. 7th degree is an E natural. So to raise it, I'm going to do a sharp. And again, I'm not worrying about what the letters and numbers are right now. I'm just focusing on that the notation looks correct. That's stage 1. Okay, now on the way back down, I want a regular plain old E and a regular plain old D natural. E natural, D natural. So I have to put in the natural to clarify. Whoops, that was a sharp. Again, this is a clarification. This is to make sure that the reader doesn't get confused and think that you still intend a sharp to carry over. So in a way, these naturals are redundant, but in another way, they're necessary for clarification. Okay, stage 1 is done. I've now put in the notation the way it should look. Double check my work. Somebody please tell me if I've messed it up. This is why I'm not a student. And now I go to stage 2. I ignore all the red information. I focus on the black boxes and the information inside of those boxes, and I just type it in exactly as I see it with no spaces. So I type 6S, 7S, 7N, 6N, and that's it. That's the answer. Again, it takes upper and lower case, but I just wanted, because I had mentioned before the issue of what happens if the note is already sharped, as in this example, A sharp. This is something you all should know by now, and quick reminder, if you want to raise a sharp, you have to use a double sharp. So actually in this case, you would do this. And that will give you a 6D in that slot. And the same thing would happen with the 7. And then, in case this is confusing, I might as well complete the picture here. To take it back to its default, you don't want a natural this time, because in the key signature it was a sharp. So you actually want to put a sharp back on it over here. So in this case, you're using a sharp to lower the note back down, which sounds a little strange, but that's what's happening when you have a double sharp in this key signature. So yeah, I think that's it. Again, if anything is still unclear, just please let us know. I think I'm going to unshare now, maybe.
I think the last question we had is someone wanted to still go with the last homework assignment on harmonic function. Craig, do you want to try that one?
Oh yeah, this one is starting to connect to larger issues. It can be tricky, definitely.
Yeah, we can do this. Let me do screen share again. There we go. Okay, are we in? Okay, so this exercise has 2 parts. The first is that you have to correctly identify the key, and the second is that you have to correctly identify the scale degree that's given. And it has 3 parts. Then you have to go back and you have to correctly identify what the harmonic function is based on the scale degree that you found. There are a couple short tricks that I like to use for the major and the major key signatures, and then you can obviously use the major key signatures to find the minor ones. For instance, with flats, I look to the second to last flat as the name of the key. So when I approach this number 1, I say, based on the major key signature, what is the function of the given note? So my first step is finding out what major key signature actually has 7 flats, which is just an ungodly key signature that really should not be used often. In any case, if I haven't had it memorized, I can look to the second to last flat, which is of course a C flat, and realize that this is now C flat major. So that's step 1 done. Step 2 is to figure out what step of the scale B flat is. And if I start counting with C flat as 1, I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 being the 7th step. So my answer in this case would be leading tone, because the leading tone is the 7th step in a major key. Let me skip down a little bit. So the rest of these are major also. My short trick for finding the major key signature in a sharp key, and some of you may do this already, is you go to the last sharp and you go up 1 diatonic step. So the last sharp here is G sharp. If I go 1 step up, I get A. This would then be A major. In this case, if we're in A major and I have an F sharp, I'm going to count up starting with A as 1. I would have A as 1, B as 2, C sharp as 3, D as 4, E as 5, F sharp as 6. And then, of course, this would then be submediant, because that's the 6th step of a major scale. I'm guessing page 2 is minor. Let's take a look. Indeed. Okay, so with minor, it's a little bit trickier. Now you can use my trick for finding the key signatures again if you don't already have them memorized, as long as you understand the relationship between the relatives. which of course was the previous homework, relatives and parallel. So I'm going to start with this first one. We have key signature 4 sharps. If this were major, it would be E major, and I know that because the last sharp is D sharp, and a diatonic step up is E. And then from that E major, we can find the relative minor, which would be down 3 half steps, which would give us C sharp minor. Now, hopefully, you just have C sharp minors memorized, being from 4 sharps. Okay, so next steps, I have to find the note that I'm looking at. That's an A sharp. So if I start counting at C sharp is 1, I'll get C sharp is 1, D sharp is 2, E is 3, F sharp is 4, G sharp is 5, A sharp would be 6. 6 is the submediant. And remember, the submediant is always the submediant regardless of whether it's raised or not. Let me find something that does change, though. This would be do we not have any leading tones here, guys? Am I missing it? That'd be bad luck, huh? Well, let's pretend for a second like something came up with leading tone. Okay, so let's look at number 3. So we want to find the minor key function of the given note. So 2 flats, we have to understand first that that would be either B flat major, and again, if I look at the second to last flat, there's my B flat, and the relative minor to B flat is G minor. This, of course, being the first scale degree we would call tonic. And here that is up here. Now let's just pretend for a second that this was an F natural instead. For an F natural, we would count up G is 1, A is 2, B flat is 3, C is 4, D is 5, E flat is 6, F natural is 7. But remember, in minor, the unaltered F natural would be called the subtonic. If we pretend that this was instead an F sharp, then that would be an example of the leading tone. The raised 7th step in G minor, or in any minor key, would be that leading tone. And that's basically it. The biggest mistake that any student's going to make with this is they're not going to start counting with the tonic note as 1. That is by far the single most common mistake that students make with this. So if you were in E minor, E is 1. If you were in E flat minor, E flat is 1. And make sure you start counting up from there. Okay.
Great.
So I think we have another question here, and someone would like to know if we can quickly review relative and parallel keys, which we handled just in that last homework assignment. But if someone wants to summarize that, while we are waiting, because I have posted the link up if anybody wants to join us live, and so while we're waiting a few minutes for someone to perhaps jump on and join us live here during our session, maybe we can review the relative and parallel keys, and then maybe if no one joins us in 3 or 4 minutes, we can call it quits.
I have that assignment up, if so I'm happy to jump in on it.
Sure, great.
Sure. I will share. So this is another case of a music theory terminology. It's just sort of relative, parallel. But I actually think that I love the word relative in this case because I think it actually describes the situation really well in the following way, that 2 scales are relatives, major and minor are relatives, if they share all of the same actual pitches, the same actual notes. So the way I think of it is that they share the same DNA, so they're relatives of each other. I don't know if that works for you, but they literally have the same notes. And the only difference is that you're starting in a different place.
So it's like twins where one of them is goth,
exactly,
real sulky, and the other one's like,
right. But they both marry somebody with the same name and the same favorite flavor of ice cream. Even though they're separated at birth.
This just got weird.
Weird. I better just mute myself here.
So the trick I'll just stick with relative minor for a second, relative major minor. I think the thing that can be tricky for people is how do you find one from the other, and people find it different, have different ways of doing it. But the way I have the easiest time is to use to go either 6 steps up or 3 steps down. So For example, if you are in C major, to find the relative minor, you go 6 steps up or 3 steps down, which gets you to the same note. Just give you a second to ponder that. So that note is A, and then if you start the scale on that note, you get the relative minor scale. So the trick, is to be able to do that calculation of 6 steps up or 3 steps down, and remember that those are scale steps. So if you are in the key of B flat major, or sorry, let me think of another example. If you're in the key of E major, there are 4 sharps. If you go 3 steps down, you're not going to find the relative minor on C natural, because you're staying in scale steps, notes of the E major scale. So 3 steps down in E major gets you to C sharp, not C natural, and so the relative minor of E major is C sharp minor. So if you just always make sure that you're only sticking with the scale steps. And then relative major, or sorry, parallel major and minor. The trick there is that they share the same tonic note, but not the same DNA, not the same actual pitches. In fact, they will have a lot of different pitches. So C major and C minor are parallel major and minor because they share C as their tonic, but C minor has 3 flats and C major has all natural notes. So they actually differ in their basic DNA, but they start on the same note. So that's the way I think of it. I hope that's helpful. Anybody want to add anything? Because I feel like there's other probably good perspectives on this.
This may not be the most useful trick for everybody, but one thing that I find some students do is to go for parallels. To switch from parallel major, parallel minor, you can add 3 flats. So, for example, if you're in a key with 1 flat and you want to go to the relative minor, or the parallel minor rather, you would add 3 flats, which would give you to F major 1 flat, to F minor, which is 4 flats. That's kind of tricky though when you're dealing with sharps, because a flat cancels out a sharp. So, for example, if you're in E major, which is 4 sharps, and you want to get to E minor, if you add 3 flats to 4 sharps, you're left with 1 sharp, just F sharp, and that is in fact the key of E minor.
Yeah.
And for instance, the last example I'll give, if you're in 2 sharps, which is D major, and you add on 3 flats, you will get 1 flat left over. So that'll get you from 2 sharps to 1 flat. So D minor having 1 flat, while D major has 2 sharps. Some people are going to have problems with that because they have problems going across the break from flats to sharps, but that is a method that some people do find useful for doing parallels.
And I would add to that you can think of it as notches on the circle of fifths. So I think if I understand you right, if you go, I don't know if this is going to be helpful, maybe not. Anyway, if you adding and subtracting sharps and flats is like moving around the circle of fifths. I think I still have this shared kind of in notches. So C major is the parallel major of C minor, which has 3 flats, which is the relative minor of E flat. So if you get used to all of that, I think a different version of the circle of fifths might have the minor keys on it in one of our lessons, and that would give you that feeling as well. So that might be another way to look at it.
Right. I often tell students that the magic number for minors is 3.
Mm-hmm.
The relative minor is 3 steps below its relative major. It's 3 half steps and 3 diatonics and 3 scalar steps. You're adding 3 flats. It's 3 spaces over on the circle of fifths. So 3 seems to come up a lot when you're going.
That's a great. Yeah, I actually never thought of that. That's a good way to remember it. Because little things like that can go so far. Like if you're in the middle of the exam and you get confused, just remember like 3, and then it will remind you of all these other things that you know that you might have kind of temporarily forgotten. So that kind of trick can be like really useful.
Okay, we have another question here, and Gajan, I'm not going to say that right. Gajan Deep Core is asking if we have any tips for the creative project. And this is my feeling about this is that you want to go with your key signature. So if you're going to be in D major, start and end on D. And a lot of your natural instincts, natural inclinations for the melody will be built into the scale. So if you use F sharps from the key signature and you use C sharps from the key signature in D major, for example, and you start and end on D, you're probably going to stay within the key and not drift off to strange places. And we really want you to try to focus the melody on a single key. So you've learned a lot of rules about major keys, about minor keys, about adding and removing, adding sharps and removing sharps, raising and lowering 6 scale degrees. So if you go with a minor key, stick with the key signature and raise and lower your 6 scale degrees and experiment and see what works. But whatever key you decide to write in, start and end on that key, on that note, and you will really probably do fine. Other than that, just watch your rhythm, make sure you've got the right number of beats in a bar, and don't sweat it so much. Follow your instincts; they won't lead you wrong. Anybody else have some?
I would just jump in on that. The last thing you said, that a lot of you, at least among my students in Creative Project 1, you were already writing your melodies in a lot of cases in major and minor scales, and some of you, I think, were aware of that if you've had some music theory background, but some of you, I think, didn't consciously know that, but your ears were guiding you to those same scales and stuff. So trust your instincts. Like, you will, if it sounds right to you, it's gonna be right in almost every case. So you know more than you realize.
And I would just add that melodies tend to have more skips. Tend to have more steps than skips.
Mm-hmm.
So keep in mind that most melodies that we find memorable and interesting aren't jumping all over the place. They're not swooping, by sixths and sevenths, and it's mostly seconds and thirds with a couple large skips. And in the directions, it says to think about an arc and think about a shape, and that is definitely something definitely something to think about, something to do. So more steps than skips. Keep your skips tame when you have them, and do try and think about a shape as you go and before you start.
Think of it as like a percentage. Like, you should have more than 50% steps and less than 50% skips, approximately. You could pick a percentage to help guide you. Like, you could say, I'm going to have only no more than 30% skips or something like that, and that'll keep you in the straight and narrow.
We have a clone that has just joined our chat.
Oh my gosh, it's not behaving the same way as the other clone. That is scary.
Weird.
Sorry about that, guys.
We have a minor and a major twin here.
That's right, a relative.
Yeah.
A relative. Yeah.
Did you guys mention about leading tone resolution?
Oh, I don't think we did.
No, we didn't. That would be a good thing to mention, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So major. One of the important aspects of tonality is the lead grade. In a major scale, there's nothing to worry about as long as you go to, for instance, G sharp and the key up to A as your final tone. You leading tone. However, when you get to the final two notes, the penultimate and the ultimate note, G and A, in order to solution, you need to both add a sharp to the G to make it a harmonic or melodic leading tone. You take points off for in the Creative Project. It's a simple thing. Composing melodies in a way that's, again, leading tone. Make sure you go from scale degree 7 to 8 in the same octave, and with harmonic and melodic, that sharp or yeah. Anybody else?
Did everyone else catch all that, or was it cutting out for people?
About 50%.
Yeah.
Yeah, my signal's terrible. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. So we're just saying that when you're in a major key, the seventh leading tone is built into the major scale, so you don't have to worry about that too much. And when you resolve it, you want to resolve it up to the tonic. But in a minor scale, the seventh scale degree starts as a natural. So in order to make that leading tone, in order to move us from te to t, you're going to want to raise that scale degree up a half step, up a semitone, and you're going to want to resolve it to the tonic to create that sense that you're in that particular key. And I think that was pretty much what you said from the bits and pieces I heard.
Yeah. Thank you, Stephen.
Sure. So do we have anything else? Or do we have quorum here to close down for the evening? I'm not seeing any more questions in particular. Though remember, we are always around, so feel free to watch this later and ask more questions in the forum underneath this or just in the forum generally.
Okay, good night.
Okay, all.
Yep.
And Robin's talking with a muted mic, which is always funny.
What I said was unrepeatable. It was just a one-of-a-kind thing, so yeah. I'm not even going to try.
Everything you say is unrepeatable.
I'll try and fine. I'll repeat it. I said, learn your circle of fifths. It's a great tool for all of this stuff.
It is a good tool.
Alrighty.
Cool.
All right,
Excellent.
good to talk to you all, and we will be seeing you for Unit 4.
Yep.
Bye-bye.